Hi, this is Richard Fields with this week's Report from the Fields. A couple of weeks ago, I made a rather half-hearted compliment to Donald J. Trump for ending or starting to end diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI policies at the federal level. There is no moral or ethical justification for the government to discriminate on the basis of race or gender against anyone. Since the founding of this country until recent years, government policy explicitly and implicitly discriminated against women and people of color. That was wrong. That discrimination was partially ended by enacting DEI policies that explicitly and implicitly discriminate against white men. That is also wrong. Trump ended DEI for the time being. His motivation was undoubtedly political rather than moral, and his method, executive action, will undoubtedly lead to DEI being reinstated the next time the Democrats take power. This week, my take on the Trump agenda is one of wholehearted condemnation. The issue is tariffs. Trump and his team of crackpot economists try to claim that tariffs are paid by the foreign companies that export to the U.S. That is utter nonsense. Tariffs are paid by U.S. importers who promptly add the cost of the tariff to the retail price, just like a sales tax. Tariffs are effectively sales taxes on imported goods. Like all sales taxes, they are regressive, meaning lower income people who spend a higher percentage of their income on consumer goods pay more of the tariff tax proportional to their income than higher income people do. So Trump can brag about reducing income taxes all he wants. Taxes won't go down because they will be replaced with the tariff tax or inflation. From the standpoint of tax equity, the rich will pay a smaller proportion of their income in taxes, and the poor will pay more. From a business viewpoint, the uncertainty surrounding Trump's tariffs is horrendous. A 25% tariff against Canada and Mexico is summarily announced. Then, after groveling by the leaders of those countries, it's postponed for 30 days. Businesses have a much harder time making long-term plans. We saw that shortages of consumer goods result when supply chains get interrupted during the COVID lockdowns. The uncertainty of Trump's tariffs have the potential to cause supply chain snarls on steroids. The only businesses that benefit from tariffs are the incompetent ones who are unable to compete with foreign businesses. Tariffs enacted by the U.S. lead to reciprocal tariffs by other countries that we export to. That leads to less international trade overall. Less trade, higher chance of depression. See Smoot-Hawley, which exacerbated the Great Depression in the 1930s. But the most laughable part about the Trump tariffs is his claim that he can stop smuggling of fentanyl and other drugs by getting Canada and Mexico to better police their borders. Fentanyl from Canada? And of course, the government has been losing its war on drugs ever since it was initiated in the 1870s against Chinese opium dens in California. To assume that Mexico's border control can do a better job of preventing willing drug buyers in America from getting drugs from willing drug sellers in Mexico than the U.S. border control is to engage in willful fantasy. And then there is the separation of powers constitutional issue of whether Trump can unilaterally enact tariffs through executive action without the consent of Congress, or whether he will pay attention to the courts when he is told that he cannot. Tariff policy alone is enough to result in the utter economic failure of the Trump experiment in populism. And I haven't even gotten started on the negative effects of his nativist integration policy. Maybe later. That's this week's report from the fields. See you again next week.